I am good. Thank you
That's
for
wonderful.
watching me get good for a while.
Yeah. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Steps. It's Friday, March 5th. Thank you to everybody joining us in Facebook land and here on Zoom. We're always happy to have you with us. I'm Bree with Apollo. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, and I'm here with my friend, Melissa McDaniel, founder of Turning Point Dance Creations, educator, choreographer, and social justice advocate. We talk all the time about how important it is to include other tools and resources into the dance training for our dancers. And today is no different. And we're talking about strength and conditioning, mental health tools. The list goes on and on and on. So layering these things on top of a dancer's technique ultimately creates a happy, healthy dancer and athlete from the inside out, head to toe. And that's what we're all about today. As Melissa said, we're talking about how can dance educators use centering and grounding techniques as a form of self-care for them and for their students. We all know right now is a very high anxiety time for so many because we're dealing with a pandemic, kids homeschooling still, competitions, conventions, just so many things going on in our personal lives and day to day. So this is hopefully going to help you. We're going to do some exercises today. But before we introduce our guest panelists, I want to give a few reminders. Throughout the episode, you may see Melissa and I looking around. We're not spacing out or disengaging. We are actually, we're looking at you. We're pulling your comments and questions into the conversation to make sure we get everything answered by Vahisha today. And we are monitoring everything on Zoom, Facebook, and Instagram. So we have lots going on. Please contribute, jump in, ask all the questions. That's what we're here for. I'm learning this topic is very new for me today. So we want to hear what you have to say, even if it may be something you don't agree with or you're not sure of. Pop that in the questions and comments and we'll get that answered for you. And without further ado, let's get to it. Melissa.
I am extremely excited to introduce Vahisha Hassan. She is a faith organizer moving at the intersections of faith, social justice, and mental health. She is the executive director of Movement in Faith, a project of Transform Network. She's a powerful public speaker, transformative facilitator, social justice trainer, minister, and writer with a deeply prophetic voice and imagination on how faith communities can be an active part of healing and collective liberation. I know that's a mouthful, but she deserves
Busy lady. And we're so grateful you're here. Thank you.
Why we need the centering and the grounding.
Right. She's the director of SEAL Initiatives at American Baptist College in Nashville. SEAL stands for Social Justice, Equity, Advocacy, and Leadership. Vahisha is also a core team member of TRACK for Movements. TRACK is trauma response and crisis care that provides support and tools and wellness for people who labor in freedom and liberation. She also serves as the associate minister at Christ Missionary Baptist Church under Reverend Gina Stewart, senior pastor, where she was licensed and ordained June 23rd, 2019. Vahisha holds a dual Master's of Divinity and Master's in Mental Health Counseling with Education Specialist certification from Gardner-Webb University right here in North Carolina. And a bachelor's degree in communications with a concentration in interpersonal organization from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Go Heels! In addition to penning book reviews, journal articles, online publications, and writing a bachelor's curriculum in applied psychology, she has curated and co-edited 3 editions of Recipients, a Lenten devotional for dismantling white supremacy.
I mean, I feel like we need to stand up and give an ovation this Friday. And I just feel so, I am blown away. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Vahisha. I'm glad that you carved time in between writing books and writing curriculum and teaching and preaching. And
I need to go do something with myself this weekend. I need to make something happen in my life.
No, let's everybody take a nap. It's the opposite. Let's everybody lay down.
So your bio doesn't mention, oh my goodness, that you are a trained dancer and were the director of a liturgical dance team for a number of years. Vahisha and I are both from Charlotte, North Carolina, so I have to put that out there. Shout out to Charlotte, North Carolina.
See, baby.
So how does that dance background help you lead people in this healing and restoration work that you do?
So I didn't realize that dance was going to be integral in the work that I would later do. You don't think that. I mean, I went to school for interpersonal, how we convey value and meaning in language, right? And then I went to divinity, which is how you connect with spirit, and then went into mental health, how you just connect with yourself and get your mind right, right? But what I figured out very quickly, especially in the iteration of psychology that we're in, is that there's this great emphasis in a good way on being embodied, right, in every aspect, and that staying in your body is a huge aspect of wellness that you have available to you at all times, because you know why? Because you're in your body. But what often happens, especially in our modern day world, is we are disembodied all the time. Like we go do the things, like, so you're talking, you know, Bree, you're talking about let's go do all the stuff. We often don't realize we leave our bodies. We check our bodies at the door. We go do the podcast. We go take care of the kids. We prepare meals. We check off whatever the 100 task list of items that we have, but we do them with no thought to our body. We don't remember our body until our body gives us a signal that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that should not be the only time that our body is at the forefront of our mind. And so that's where dance helped me, because I dance for no reason all the time. I was just telling Melissa the other day that I was rolling around in Home Depot tapping, like, because the floor was so perfect for tapping. And I was like, ooh, and it was playing some good music over the, the loudspeakers. So I just went to tapping while I was trying to find my, my light bulbs. So, so bringing your body into it, and not having some of the inclinations to be afraid of movement, to be afraid to stretch an arm, right? Like all the way out, to finish a motion. That was actually the biggest critique I got in dance. Finish your motion, Vahisha, is what my dance teacher was always telling me. So being able to do that and incorporate that in areas of wellness has been huge. I just didn't, realize that was going to be helpful. So dance educators, you're already,
they're a leg up, right? Because
yeah,
as dancers, we're trained to pay attention to our bodies,
right,
and listen to our bodies. I think
absolutely. And the floor. I mean, even the aspect of the floor, the concept of grounding was originally referred to as earthing, right? In this maintaining a connection with the ground, with the earth, as being like a part of nature and a part of our bodies. And even then, physics has that one of the laws that says equal and opposite. Me and Melissa, let me tell you something. That physics class we took in high school, nobody wanted us to be in there. But the one thing I remember from my physics class was equal and opposite pressure.
Oh, did we lose her?
Opposite pressure to you. And so those kind of concepts really help when you think about grounding.
Yeah, that's a great segue, because the next thing I want to ask you, I want to start at the very beginning. What are centering and grounding techniques for everybody out there that don't know? I said this is very new for me. I kind of get a sense of what it is, and I've heard about it, but as far as applying it in my life, what are these techniques?
So grounding just basically means bringing your focus to what is happening right now. Think of in this most simplest terms, being present, being right where you are, right in that moment. And again, we're so busy. We're 5 moves ahead of where we are to get to the next thing. So grounding is bringing your focus to what is happening in the moment, either physically in your body or even in your surroundings. And so then instead of being trapped in your mind and your thoughts and things that can cause anxiousness, then you come back to center. So there's this grounding aspect, and then this centering aspect. And so it's a practice that can help pull you away from unwanted memories, from harmful or painful flashbacks, from negative or even challenging emotions. Now please hear, I'm not saying repress emotions, right? So that's important to also dictate. If you are grounding and centering as a means to avoid feelings and emotions, that is not helpful for your long term. But if you're doing it in the moment to not have an anxiety attack, to be able to perform your dance, to be able to process and work through what you are feeling, then this is a healthy technique. So again, it's originally was referred to as earthing, and this just talks about this physical connection taking place all the way to like we give off electrical things as well, like our bodies. So this is even electrical frequencies of the body, of the human body, and of the earth. So the earth, nature, is giving off electricity. So we are also giving off frequencies. And so there's ways to bring those things in tune. And then Centering is like a visualization technique. And that gets into how to focus. Again, still on the here and now, how to focus right where you are, but in a way that's helpful, not in a way that maybe the here and now is causing you anxiousness and anxiety.
Do you feel like this problem is, sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to just say something on to kind of piggyback off what Vahisha was saying about, being able to calm anxiousness and using these techniques to do that. But I also want to highlight that it's also a way to experience the joy and happiness that's happening at the time. So instead of thinking about it as just, oh, I'm anxious, let me do this, it's, oh, I'm in a joyful, beautiful moment, let me tune in.
So what you just spoke to is centering up. So there are two types of centering. You can center down, and that's a way. So you have to be aware, right, of where you are, what your need is. That's so perfectly stated, Melissa. So, and also keep in mind, just help me, y'all, because psychology. This is something I have to fight often. Psychology typically comes from a place of deficit. Like it's a study it tends to be a study of the ways that our human behavior hampers things as opposed to brings beauty and light to things, which is where divinity helps balance me out, right? And so being in both of those worlds helps a lot. So thank you for saying that. So if you are in a place where you are too high, centering down, meaning too high, like as in stimuli or anxiousness, then centering down brings you in a way that's helpful. But if you are too low, right? If you are too low and you want to raise your energy or raise your awareness of the beauty that is happening around you, that beauty is possible and amazing and available, then centering up is a methodology as well.
And I think this is so common, especially probably with women and mothers. Like I can say for me, there's oftentimes I feel like I'm missing out on big moments with my children and big moments just like Melissa said, to step back and just immerse myself in the joy of the now and what's going on in our life, because I'm so worried about the 5 million things that have to get done. And, I'm sure for dancers, it's very much, this could be very helpful in the way that, they've got all these external pressures and stresses on them, outside of the studio, and being able to use these techniques to bring themselves in, let all of that go, leave it outside of the room, and just focus on their art and their athleticism. That would be extremely valuable, I would think, for them.
And just the joy of performance. Yeah.
And right. And even the scoring aspect. So when you have dance competition and when you have the way performance is measured, at what point do you just get to enjoy how your body is moving, how you connect with the rhythm, how the music is moving through you, how you are sending a powerful and amazing message with no words, just with your body. There's such beauty in that, which is why I love that, specifically in liturgical dance in like faith settings. Yes, those things are available. And how do you stay in that moment? And even, I don't have any little people, but even thinking about planning like a birthday party or commemorating some kind of special event for your little, you're so wrapped up in the decorations and the other little people and all the things. At what point do you just miss the joy in the child? At what point do you sit and celebrate that this was a life that came from you in whatever context, however mothering shows up, right? And those are important, and you need a balance of that pleasure. Like pleasure is one of those emotions that you should feel, that you should process, that you can center in pleasure as well.
And connecting this back to dance educators, that just you inspired this whole other thought. We're talking about dance educators too, remembering why you love this job. It can get very stressful and create so much anxiety and almost make it where it's not fun to do this every day, because you're so worried about they don't have it, they're not clean, they're messing this up, they're not paying attention, they're not and what's going to happen when we get there, and all the things, rather than just sitting back and going, we worked so hard and I love this job so much. I think we could all use a little bit more of that in our lives. So I'm excited to learn how we're going to accomplish this today. when you talk about, well, before we move on, I have a quick comment here on Zoom. Elizabeth Kessler says, dissociative disorder here. My whole life is trying to apply grounding techniques. Haha. Same, Elizabeth, same. Is centering up or centering down basically like finding your window of tolerance? Those are cool terms I've never heard before.
Got you. I will include in the resource. I don't have it on what I prepared already, but I will include further resources on centering up and centering down. And interestingly enough, it specifically comes from a teacher who is a dancer who and they get into that. And so some of it is integration. So especially thinking about dissociation, reintegrating yourself and the various pieces and parts of yourself. And I would say yes to window of tolerance, and also to possibility, non-anxious possibility, right? So what are those, even as Melissa said, what are the positive pleasure centers that you can access where beauty is possible and available, as opposed to just escaping what is negative and causing you issue in the moment.
Thank you for that.
And thank you for the question and your journey. I know healing and wellness is a lifelong effort.
Hard. And it's one of those things that it seems like it shouldn't be hard, but it's hard.
It's so
It's
incredibly
hard.
difficult. And it grows more and more difficult every day, because modern society, as I said, is built to disembody and to create additional ways to be unwell and devalue wellness and make it not important, and don't consider it a factor of your humanity. Like, we're humans. Part of who we are is a wellness and a sense of connection to self and family, community, and the earth.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Have these grounding and centering practices traditionally been connected to religious or faith-based activities?
So yes, in every way, and that makes some folks really uncomfortable. Um, especially, if you're fundamental in whatever your faith is, and be clear, whatever the spectrums of faith that you show up. And so I'm even meaning like fundamental atheism. There's a thing, right? So fundamental atheism, fundamental Christianity, fundamental faith, whatever, fundamental Catholic, whatever. It can be hard. It can be very, very hard, because if it doesn't fit in your very specific box, then it is demonized. And that's something that faith people and I often call it faith bodies, right? Like, that's something we have to unlearn. So sitting in your faith body, how can you access areas of wellness that have value, regardless of what faith they come from?
Right.
Regardless of their origins, and not demonize them, but again, integrate them in ways that are well and work for you. So that's the broader answer. The more succinct answer, and by succinct I don't mean shorter.
Never short. It's never short.
The more concretized answer, I should say, is that meditative practices go back centuries. So if you're doing anything where somebody talks about they discovered this 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, somebody else did it before them, right? So the earliest forms and practices were by the Egyptians around 4000 BC, the Hindus in India around 1500 BC, and then there were Taoists in China in the 6th century BC, Buddhists in India around 500 BC. Like, see, we ain't even got to
Right.
still, right? And then the ancient Hebrews absolutely were meditators. Having studied the Christian Bible, the Old Testament is a Hebrew text.
Right.
The original language is in Hebrew, right? And it talks about meditation and prayer. So the ancient Hebrews were meditators, as well as the early Christians, having adopted that. Here adopted, right? So having adopted, I mean, all Christian is a form of spiritual adoption anyway. So having adopted that, we're the Gentiles in this scenario. So having adopted that from the Hebrews. And then in the Middle Ages, Roman Catholics had meditative prayer, Gregorians had chants, like so hear this, right? So then in modern times, we have progressive relaxation, and that's like progressive faith folks that do this.
Right.
Guided imagery, relaxation response. People do brainwave in entrainment. It's a whole thing. And then the biggest thing that folks are kind of on now is mindfulness. So mindfulness is, and that does come in a form of a spiritual practice. It doesn't have to, right? So hear
Right.
that. It doesn't have to come in a form of spiritual practice. It can be mindfulness in nature because things are surrounding you. Faith folks tend to attribute nature to some form of creation. Not don't hear Christian creation when I say that, but some form of humans didn't make it. So
Yeah.
how do we live in those surroundings in something larger than ourselves?
And the bottom line is you can take any one of these practices and you can pull from anywhere in history and you can make it work for you and your belief system and your value system with the overarching goal of it's for your own personal health and wellness journey. You can tailor that however you want to, but at the end of the day, that is the goal, right?
Yes, I am absolutely here for the tailoring. I also will say be mindful of appropriation, right? So again, back to people who are like, I discovered this 50 years ago and then I made a whole thing and I make money off it now. And I in no way attribute it to the original peoples who did this and who practiced this. And I don't acknowledge that we demonized them for all these years and labeled things as pagan or rituals that were deeply helpful in mindfulness, but we've demonized them, but now we make money off of them, or we capitalize on them in a way that's not ethical and not equitable. So there's also a way to do it, right? So and then that becomes also important.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love integration. You can integrate these into what you are already doing and what you believe. And I think that that's something that we definitely, in a lot of ways, need to understand. I can integrate other people's ideas and thoughts into mine. I don't have to replace.
Right.
It doesn't mean replace. Integration is different than replacement. And I love that this is a great segue into this because you kind of use the word meditation and use a lot of different types and things. Is centering and grounding different than meditation, or is it a form of meditation, or how do they fit together?
So they definitely fit together, and most people use the words totally interchangeable, but they're not. To be clear, so
Okay.
meditation is a practice to regulate or train thoughts or clear the mind, right? So this is
Okay.
going to a state of inner silence, heightened awareness, deep calm. So this provides a way to shift. You're purposely shifting from a noisy, scattered left brain to a quiet, focused right brain. That is like the point of meditation. And there are various forms, again, in religious practices and spiritual practices, and then, different types of practices that don't incorporate those things. And so you have like focus, attention, mindfulness, effortless presence. Those are kind of the big heightened, the big thematic areas of those, but they are all different because they have different goals. And so one of the teachers that I found, I believe was a Dr. Green, who likes centering more than mindfulness, partially because if you heard the very first thing I said, meditation is a practice. Sorry, meditation. Meditation is a practice and typically takes minimally 20 minutes. So how often do you either any of the faces on this screens, right? Or even dancers or dance educators have 20 minutes for what is actually a disciplined practice, right?
I'd
So
like to find 20 minutes, but I don't have 20 minutes.
right. And so we need to make the 20 minutes, but we make the 20 minutes just as part of our day, as part of our discipline, as part of our practice. It is not a response to a stimuli, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So if you are in the moment having a need, meditation can be that if you are on a monastery or if you're on the beach or if you are not in the world with the cars going by, right? Like this is, you are not going to meditate driving, right? But you can, but you can center while you're driving. You
I
can
see what
ground.
you're saying.
Yes, you can ground while you are driving. So those are those are some of the differences.
Yeah. So you can integrate. Integrate is going to be the
Word of the day.
You can integrate centering.
Like on Sesame Street.
Yeah. The word of the day is you can integrate centering into what you are actively doing at the moment, because it's actually about being aware of what you are doing in the moment versus meditation being, it is about separating into
practice.
a place of
It's a
quiet
practice.
where you can practice and train.
It's almost like practicing the centering
Right.
separate from the stimuli.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes. And I'm assuming that meditation, the practice of meditation and working at it can make you better at centering.
It so is just like, think of like muscle memory in dance. You practice and do a thing so that when you first send the signal for your body to do something, it knows what to do, and then it knows what to do next, and it does it better every time. So absolutely, meditation would undergird your ability to center and ground in other moments.
Wonderful. So
Thank
these
you.
practices are used widely in the social justice space to help activists experiencing stress and trauma. But how do you think dance educators specifically benefit from the practice of centering and grounding?
So as I said in the beginning, you're less disembodied. So half of the time we're needing to take activists and people who are actively involved in social change to remember their body. That's half the work. So dancers and dance educators, your body's already in tune. Dancers are used to being told, like, now do this 5, 6, 7, 8, this is the next step. This is the next motion. So you're wanting to incorporate incorporate motion even in all of the things you do, and into different levels of accessibility based on what people's bodies are also able to do, just being much more aware of your body. And this is how dance educators and dancers are going to use this the most, not just in whether you get the motion correctly, but whether you're that heightened awareness of your body as you do the things in ways that bring you joy and in ways that decrease stress and anxiety.
So we've been talking about this disembodied state that we are all often in. I mean, I call it autopilot. I guess that's probably the layman's terms for it. You know, you finish a performance and you're like, I have zero idea what I just did out there. Or you're driving your car and you're like, I'm home. How did I get home? I've done that so many times, just pulled in my garage and been like, wow, okay.
I've done it where I wasn't supposed to be home.
Yes, I have done that. I have driven to the dance studio when I was supposed to be going home. So knowing that we are often in a disembodied state, what types of physical signals do we have that we are there and we might need to use some centering grounding? Like, how do we know that? What does that feel like?
You just named examples, right? So just like you did a thing, like where you lost time, basically, like you didn't experience going from point A to point B. You just remembered point A, and then you just remembered point B, and you lost the whole journey in between. And we do that with everything, like even like cooking, especially if you're cooking for a family or cooking as a means to food, right? So then we skip the beauty of gathering the ingredients. We skip the beauty that we have taken something and created a brand new thing. So we skip the journey in between, which is you've made a masterpiece. Every time you have cooked a thing, you have created a new thing. And oftentimes we just go from, oh, let me pull out this stuff out of the freezer, let me unthaw it, blah, blah, blah. Let me put it on this plate and eat it because it's whatever the time of day that food needs to happen. And so it's that journey in between. And we need to do that more in everything that we do.
Yeah.
I have a question, and maybe a silly question, I don't know, but we were talking a lot about, grounding and centering to find the joy and to, just calm yourself. But can they also be used to really get in touch with and identify feelings that may not be as positive as a healthy way to move forward and move past something? Is that possible, or is it just really to calm anxiety and to but is it to calm anxiety and find the joy more than
so
more
both and it's just different techniques are going to do that. So like there are with grounding, there's like a physical way that you can do grounding, there's a mental way that you can do grounding, there's a soothing way that you can do grounding, and each thing is going to be different. So you determine what you're focusing on, what you're coming to more awareness of. And
Right.
if I would not recommend trying to untangle deeply challenging feelings as your first step of grounding, right? So that No, that so yes, that is available, but maybe you need a guided meditation. There are many apps and different types of folks and YouTube and the things that they can do guided meditations on how to do that. But not everything is meant for you to travail alone, right? So go to therapy.
Normalize that thought process.
Go to therapy. Go to therapy and allow the safest environment you can access with an objective person who is not deeply invested in the outcome of what you are experiencing or what you are feeling. That's the biggest value in therapy. So we have our friends, we have our loved ones, we have all of these beautiful people that we are surrounded by, social distancing because of the pandemonium. But we have all of that, but those people love us so much or either are so unhealthy with us, right? Both can be true, that there's still an investment in how we feel, an investment in the outcome that a therapist is not going to have. And so we need that level of objectivity, but also in a therapeutic relationship. And that is really helpful. So that's the place where you would want to go and begin to focus on some of those feelings and disentangle them. And that therapist having a better assessment of the full range of what you're dealing with, not just that one feeling, can give you very specified tools for you to then begin to do that work. That's absolutely helpful work, but it does need to be done in a container that will hold you. Be held.
Visual, yeah.
Be held, be open to being held in a therapeutic way while you do this beautiful work.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would totally suggest, my personal opinion and just mine from my therapy journey and looking for therapeutic practitioners, is someone who actually acknowledges and uses meditation, grounding, and centering techniques as part of how their methodology is super important.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those are questions that you should feel empowered to ask. So every counselor has a has a counseling theory that they abide by. You can ask them what that is. So, and they should be able to articulate that to you. And if a therapist says, oh, I just work with everybody, anybody, all the bodies. Okay. But then
yeah.
do you have any level of specialization that you're most passionate about? So ask it in that way, because obviously they want you to be their client, right? There's an investment there, but you want to know if they specialize in areas that are going to directly help you. So that's super important. And and be willing to say, I don't know the practices, I don't know them, but I want you to incorporate them and not just do psychotherapy, meaning not just do talk therapy, which is helpful, but that you want tools in the session and you want tools outside of the session. These are the things that you can ask for. Advocate, for yourself, find your voice, be willing to be vulnerable and direct as you are able.
Yeah. We have a question on Facebook, Facebook Live from Casey. When you're having anxiety, do you need to center up or down?
Down.
Damn.
So, because anxiety is heightened stimuli. Your stimuli is up. You're responding to a heightened awareness of, at that point, every freaking thing, even though it feels like one specific thing. And so you want to center down as a way to bring your focus to one thing. It can be one thing that's a part of those things, or it can be one separate thing, so that you can center enough to then go deal with that thing.
Yeah, we have a question from Elizabeth Kessler. I think it's a good time to introduce this too. Mindfulness and grounding can be such a hard concept even for adults to understand. How do we explain it to young dancers, especially if we're not mental health professionals ourselves? We talk a lot about dance educators wear many hats. They're an unofficial therapist, they're a guidance counselor, they're a scheduler, they're sometimes a parent, a sibling, they're all the things, right?
Yes,
all the things. But they're not licensed to do any of it, right? Including teach dance. but the expectation is there that they're just that. And so that's why they're the most amazing people. But, we're not professionals. And a lot of times these kids need more than what we're able to provide. How do we, if you're sitting here talking about centering and grounding, and we go to our dance students and go, okay, now we're going to center and ground ourselves. 9 times out of 10, if you say that to a teenager, right, they're going to go, what? Like this woman has lost her mind, So how do we explain that to them so in a way that it makes sense and that they're on board with? Because the cool factor always jumps into everything.
Because it's not cool unless it's cool, right?
Right.
So a couple of things. One, there are, and I did put one in the resource document, that there are guided meditation versions that you have access to. So you don't have to be the licensed person. Go use the tools that some licensed person put out. So one of the ones I put in there was the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique that we're gonna do a brief version of today. But this is it's one of the most widely known ones, which is why I at least just chose it as a starting place for folks. But there's I put the link in, there's a guided grounding version of it. So there's someone's voice that comes on, they do a brief explanation of what grounding is, and then it just walks you through the whole thing. And guess what? The dance educator just has to hit play.
Yep. And there you go.
Like the music, right? Kind of like the music.
On the floor, right.
So you're good. But what you also want to do is do it with them. Don't stand there some creepy weird server, right? So but it's a vulnerable moment, and if you're asking people and young people to enter in, whether they realize it's vulnerable or not, they're just going to think it's embarrassing, right? Because everything's embarrassing when you're a child, because of that cool factor. But yeah, so you want to hit play. They're going to explain what it is, and then you all do it together. The way that I recommend is, one, you need to have your own meditation practice. Back to that discipline, form one of your own, and then you're better able to impart it to the young people, especially because the one thing you have is that you know them. You do know them so well. You do know them best. You have become their social worker. You have become their guidance counselor. You have become their soft place to land, their ear. You have become all that. So you have relationship. Take that relationship and again, as Melissa Sesame Streeted us, integrate it. Right? Integrate it into the children that into the young people that in a way that that they can access it. So that might mean you pick something that's a cultural norm in that group, or something accessible in that area. Like one of the things is to visualize your favorite place. What if everybody visualizes the same one place that's something about that area is known for? That's a cool thing for those folks. Make it specific, right? So that's how you tailor it and integrate it in that way.
And just to be clear, like I have an app that does guided meditation that a friend, recommended to me, but guided meditation is different than guided grounding. Is that correct?
It is. Okay. It is, again, because meditation is trying to build you a practice, a discipline and a practice, but that's part of what you could be doing if you're normalizing it in a dance space. You're starting it as a practice first, and then you're venturing into the ways that they can center and ground in areas outside of that dance space and outside of those sets of people.
Techniques they can use anywhere, anytime, anywhere, anything going on.
Listen, I'd be out here. I'm just glad it's not like a ticker tape going across my forehead of whatever grounding I'm doing to deal with half the people that I deal with, because I just have to make it through. But they don't necessarily know that. And I'm going to do the other one that I'm going to do is that shorter version. So I'm going to do kind of the technical 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. And then I'm also going to do one that is just so easy and nobody's going to know that you're doing it.
Yeah, we're going to get to those techniques in a second. And before we do, Elizabeth Kessler said, I do think our young dancers are actually very open to these things once we explain it. I've had young dancers tell me very casually about having a therapist, and I love that. And yes, again, normalizing the idea of therapy and working through our issues with someone else is that should be a normal thought process and conversation, I think.
And even as Melissa said, normalizing working through our goodness,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
like you don't just go to therapy in bad times. Like it's not just like the mechanic, right? So you go to get an oil change because you want your engine to run well. You don't
Right.
wait till there's no oil and the oil light came on. So
Right.
there's different ways to go to therapy, and so both the oil light is just as good a valid of a reason to go as the main, like just regular maintenance of your wellness, and think of it that way. So go to navigate your goodness as well. One of the things I wanted to mention on here, and I also didn't put in the resource. I'm so sorry. I'll try to go back. Is the concepts of even stress. You have stress, which is EU. Then you have like regular stress, and I say regular because we all have stress. And then you have distress, which is a heightened type of stress that hampers your abilities to do the things. But please be clear, so can eustress. Eustress is stress from a positive source. Distress is stress from a negative source. And that's really hard to wrap people's mind around,
Okay,
especially.
so wait, was eustress? Give me an example of a eustress, because I'm not grasping that. Stress to me is just
Can I
all
tell
negative
you? Does
all the
everybody
time.
know what's going on in your life? Huh?
What?
I said, how much of Melissa business can I tell? Does everybody know
No.
what? Oh, okay. So I can't tell no business. Okay.
No.
So let's just say that stress might be getting accepted into college, right?
Okay.
It's a positive thing that you got accepted, but does that not bring about the stress of this is the new environment? How am I going to pay for it? I'm going to be away from my parents, which can, again, positive, but but also, what's my dorm going to be like? What's my living going to be like? Oh my gosh, I can go study and do a whole new thing. It's new.
Positive change, but the
It's a
stressor is
positive
related to that
source,
change.
but there
Okay.
is stress related to it. And actually, there's no positive thing you can name does not have associated stress. It's no such thing. Yay, I'm pregnant. Oh crap. There's going to be a whole nother human, one that has to come out of somebody's body. And then two, like I'm gonna walk out the house without this human, and then I'm gonna walk back in the house with a whole other human
Yeah.
that I'm solely responsible for in
Right.
some aspect, right? So there's
Absolutely.
nothing you can name. I
Okay.
opened a dance studio. Oh my gosh, I'm a business owner. Whoop. Oh Lord, the rent gonna be due next year. I have to have a certain minimum amount of dancers that I didn't have to have before. How do I retain my staff? How do I, right? Like,
So eustress versus distress.
yeah, and stress is in the middle. So you have the spectrum. You stress from positive sources, stress because there's just gonna be stress.
Because
And
there's
then,
traffic.
and you said what?
There's traffic.
Anything, right? And then distress because it's like stress from a negative source.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great way to think about it. Just
All
learn
right.
something.
I think we need to get into these exercises. I think that
Yep. Let's do it.
we have a better understanding of what we're
I need
doing.
this in my life.
So Visha, you said you're going to do 2.
Yes, I'm gonna do 2. I can make them. How much time do we have? Because I can make them both kind of short. I'll maybe describe a little. This will go a little faster than it normally would. Is
Okay.
what I'm gonna say.
Yeah. So about 8 minutes.
Okay. So yeah, I can. Thank you. So the most widely known version is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique, and it is aimed for anxiety. And so you just want to identify 5 things. Now, let me. One preface is that this absolutely is based on having accessibility to all these ranges of senses. So if you have a student that is blind, or a student that has impaired abilities to do anything, you want to make sure that you find a way to include them in what this can look like. So you don't
Thank you
want
for
to,
saying that, by the
yeah,
way. Thank
you
you.
don't want to say 5 things you can see and you got the student that can't see. What are you doing?
Right.
Right? Like, so that's not, yeah. So you would want to adapt this based on accessibility and not make a whole production out of that. Well, Susie can't see, so we're going to do that. What? No, like, so you don't want to do that. You want to do that ahead of time. So 5-4-3-2-1 grounding. So it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And so you're going to go into a place where you focus on those things, and we're going to do that together. Now, what I've done in the resource document and a little bit of what I'll do now is you want to modify that. This is where my dancer thing comes in, right? And that's just really called somatics. If people are wanting to look things up, it's incorporating somatics and motion and into these techniques. So you want to modify by adding a motion as you identify the things. So if it's 5 things you can see, like what if you reached for that thing or you acted out the thing with your body? Does that make sense? 4 things you can feel, actually feel it. Like actually move, like you don't have to sit here like this. 4 things I can feel. And then I just like go, like reach for the thing, act like you're holding the thing or interacting with what the thing is. 3 things. So it's reflect in the motion that you, here's the adaption, reflect in the motion of what you can see, reach in motion for what you can feel, respond in motion to the rhythm of what you can hear, react in motion to what you can smell. Is it a pleasant smell? Is it a terrible smell? Remember in motion what you can take. So let's do that together.
Okay.
So for you and everyone viewing and engaging, you want to think of 5 things you can see. Take 2, I'm gonna say 3 deep breaths. Breathe in and out however you like. We won't formalize that. 3 deep breaths. If it feels safe and comfortable to close your eyes, do so. If that makes you feel less secure, then eyes are open. So you want to think of 5 things you can see. Once you can see them, reach for them. Reflect in motion what it is that you can see. I'm gonna give an example. So right now I have a fan, a ceiling fan, right, going around in my room, and I would just model the motion of the ceiling fan. And this is a mid-range motion, so depending on how warmed up you are. And if you were more, then you could go, and I've now become the thing I see. I'm engaging with the thing that I see. The next thing would be to think of 4 things that you can feel, tangible things that you can touch. You don't have to touch them in this moment, but just think of them and then act like you're touching them or act like you're engaging in them. Right now, for all of us, it's a cell phone. So if I was holding my phone, like how do my hands normally? Do you hold it with one hand? Do you just move thumbs one way? Do you hold it with 2 hands and then you're punching it like this? So you just bring your body into that motion of something that you can touch. If you
it
have,
doesn't have to be a calming thing. It can be.
no, it does not. It just something your mind will go to, something that you can feel. If you have a favorite stuffed animal, a teddy bear, if there's a very particular item that's important to you, that's meaningful to you, just go to that, something that you can tangibly hold, because it's not abstract, it's tangible.
Right.
And
Next,
we can incorporate actual touch. So if it's things that we can actually touch, you can.
yes, you can actually sit and touch and engage it. Exactly right. That's exactly right. And it doesn't have to be super meaningful and a big depth of a deal, right? Like this is my mouse. I can touch it.
I was using a pen.
Yes. And I love this mouth specifically because it like flattens and then it goes back up and it makes me so happy. So 3 things, and then now you're going to go into 3 things you can hear. Now for this, you got to go a little bit more in tune because we tend to drown out other sounds. What can you hear right now? And then the motion that can be associated with it, like right now in another part of the house, there's a person, and I could just lean my body closer to where that sound comes from. Or if I want to go away from that sound, I can move away. I can distance myself, but do it in a motion. Can you hear a car outside? Is there a train going by? But respond to the rhythm of what you hear. Is it a clunk clunk? And then you can do a motion that goes with what you hear. Now you want to have 2 things you can smell. So just find what is happening in your area, in your environment. What do you actually smell right now? You know, you might have forgotten that the smell was there, but now you're gonna go smell that smell. If it's not something you can smell in the moment, then you can remember a smell. You can remember a fragrance. And for me, it's always gonna be my grandma. It's gonna be my grandma. And then she has odd assortments of smells. Like there's like mothballs and magnolias, and I don't know why, but there you go. That's the smell. And then I would respond to that. Like, is this something that lifts you? Is this something you want to pull the smell in? Do you want to hold it? Like put emotion to what you're smelling. And then last thing, one thing you can taste. This can be something you can taste now in your mouth at this moment, or bring forth a memory of a taste. What is your favorite thing? If you could just put something in your mouth right now, and then you could even like put it in your mouth, like, oh, it's a strawberry. It's a chocolate dipped strawberry. Ooh.
We all know my love of cheeseburgers
Right,
on the show.
I knew
But if you put condiments on it, then Melissa's gonna not like this cheese.
I don't eat condiments at all. So
it's not like condiments at all. But if
That's so healthy of you.
So hold it, like hold your cheeseburger and put it to your mouth. That's the motion associated with it. You know, if the goodness comes down just a little bit, just wipe it off and just get it, you know, just all of that. So that's it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but put motions with it. Last exercise is just a body awareness of where you're tight. And this just really helps because oftentimes we don't realize we've tightened up, or like that we have anxiousness. We're holding that anxiousness somewhere in our body. And so let's say you're just in some situation or environment, you're out in public is my point, and you can do this. So you just want to clench something. You got to go up. You can start up and go down, or you can start down and go up. If I'm super in public, I start down because most people are not looking at my feet and stuff. So clench your toes, like take your toes and just clench them and hold them tightly for 10 seconds. And release. And then it sounds weird, but clench your knees, like put tension in your knees, put that tension, clench those knees, clench it 10 seconds and release. Go into the booty and the glutes, clench them real tight, 10 seconds and release. In your side, feel, you can be both sides, one side, but just enough tension on one side and then release it. Little bit of tension on the other side, hold it, release it. Right in your core, in the middle, all the dancers, you can't hold the core, what are you doing, right? Like, so go into your core, clench it, hold it. Diaphragm, bring air in, hold it, 10 seconds, and release. Put tensions in your fingers, and this doesn't mean you have to make a fist, especially if people are looking at you. You could just put your hands flat, but just know that they're clenched up, right? You could put them on your thighs, clench them up under the table. Nobody can see, but you just want to hold it for 10 seconds and then release. Put a little tension in your elbows. You can, like I'm sitting, but I could be talking and I tighten just this area right here, but I'm holding it. Nobody knows that it's tight, right? But I feel it. You hold it 10 seconds, release. Same thing in your neck, just kind of neck forward just a little bit, imperceptible amount of motion, but you just hold it and release. Take a deep breath. What you've done is asked your body where you were holding it, and then you just released it. You gave enough space that you released it in every part of the body. Now, what'll happen as a discipline? So first I did it through the whole body, but what'll happen as a discipline is your body will more quickly tell you where the tension is. So you'll know ahead of time. So you won't have to go from top to bottom. You'll be like, oh, I am holding this tension in my side. And so you would start there first and then maybe go through other places. But it's super easy and you can do it in the public and nobody thinks you're a weirdo.
Right. Yeah. And these are all so simple and things that dancers could easily do within, right before class, right after class, right before a competition, recital, performance, whatever.
And you could turn on music. You could turn on music in your dance space and just talk through and give really bring the dancers in. Each person names it, like the call and response, like who calls the cheer, like in cheerleading, right? So one of the dancers is the person that says, okay, 5 things you can see. And then a different dancer says 4 things you can feel. Does that make sense? So it doesn't even just have to be an instructor-led practice.
what is for the dance educators out there that are watching, what is the goal for them in doing this with their dancers? What is the ultimate goal and benefit in doing this consistently and
Yeah.
learning this practice?
So, different dancers have different goals and reasons for that they're in dance, right? So some people want to go and do this professionally. Some people just want to have a community. Some people want to have better rhythm, right? Some people, are doing it because their mom did it or their dad did it or they saw tap on TV, right? So whatever this is. So you don't always know the goals and the outcomes 20 years later that your student was in your class, but you're giving them the tools, all of the tools that are available. And that is the goal. And this is one of the tools. You are equipping this student to be a lifelong learner, lifelong learner of dance and motion and community and now wellness, right? So like life, we're
And awareness, self-awareness as a contributing member of society, just
I love
self-awareness.
that it's going to get on your nerves every day, all the time. Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much. This is very helpful for me. You have no idea.
I'm so glad. I was surprised. I really say I was surprised when, we were pre-show and you were like, this is brand new to me. And I forget. I think, all of us probably do this. We forget that when something is so integral as part of our world, that it can be so new to someone else. But that's why it's important to use language that's accessible, to use concepts that are accessible and not talk over people or around people, right? And to offer the beauty and the goodness that is in you that now somebody else has too.
It's beautiful. Thank you very much.
We have a comment on Facebook Live, Jackie Haas, who was on the show with us last week.
Yes. Hi, Jackie.
It's so fun listening to you ladies. Totally appreciate being in the moment. So thank you, Jackie.
Thanks for watching, Jackie.
That's part of that goal is to be in the moment. Yay.
Time for the homework.
Homework, yes.
Homework.
So I did include a resource document that I believe is going to be made available via a link. Post this discussion, I'm also going to add things to it. So the homework is to go in, obviously read through the different things, but find yourself in it. Find yourself in one of these options. Find a way to incorporate this into your own practice, your own wellness, because you put your mask, you put your oxygen mask on first before you go put it on the students, right? And so that's the deal. So find a way to incorporate this in your life, in your wellness, and at least one of these things incorporated in your dance space.
So that's the homework. From now till next week, we give one task, and dance educators, if it's you out there, parents, whoever, find a way to implement centering and grounding techniques into your own life this week. And then from there, after you figure that out, then you can find ways to bring that to your students. But first is you. We also want to make sure to remind you to take the STEPS 2020 initiative. It's a 4-part virtual course series that's going to tackle everything from racism to sexual abuse and awareness and gender equity. And of course, dance medicine and science, nutrition, there's all the things in there. So you can take it completely free at your own pace. I think Melissa's going to post the link here in the chat on Zoom and on Facebook. So you can start that and take it at your own pace anytime for free. We also want to advocate for our friends at YPAD. We're going to give you a 25% off discount code to get YPAD certified. They are keeping kids happy, healthy, safe, and dance with their YPAD certification program. We highly encourage everybody that is an educator, a parent, or dance studio owner to please look into the certification. It is so worthwhile, and together we can all make a difference and the dance world a happier, healthier space to be. And then Melissa is going to pop in all the resources that we talked about with Vahisha today. She was kind enough to give us so many links to share with you. Melissa is going to pop those in the chat on Facebook and Zoom here. So you guys can continue this work on your own and digging in and learning all the ways this can apply to your world. And Vahisha, just thank you so much for introducing these things and for your time and generosity with your information. Is this just all so helpful? And I think something that people in the dance community will seriously take a look at after watching this episode. So thank you very much.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for loving my Melissa as much as I do.
Oh my gosh, love her.
Grateful for this space, and I've been able to see so many of these, and I'm just glad there is a space that dance educators and dancers can come to and learn how to tackle a lot of these things that are talked about and around but not faced.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying. We're having real talk.
You are doing good work in the world.
Thank
Vahisha,
you.
can you tell people how they can reach you on social media or email?
Absolutely. So my regular Facebook is totally maxed out, but you can go to Movement in Faith, which is a public page, and it's just at Movement in Faith, movement in 3 words, Movement in Faith. You can also go to Track for Movements. There's a Facebook and an Instagram page, and it's TRACC for Movements with an S on the end, plural. I'm on Instagram also. That's open, wide open. V Hassan V Hassan MIF. So VHASAN MIF, standing for Movement in Faith. My email is Vahisha at movementinfaith.com. You can email me for any reason or talk about
Do you
different
do consults? Do you work with studios? I should have asked that. Do you work with studios?
Yeah, absolutely. And the best way, you know what, a best way to, if you want to schedule time with me to talk about or explore something like that, I do have a Calendly link, and that's like a scheduler. And so it's calendly.com/Vahisha, and it pulls up my life, and you can drop in it in ways that you would like to have a meeting and talk about that and give more specifics of your studio space, the population of dancers that you work with, and how you would like to incorporate that. I've done some stuff with some folks that do music therapy, and I've gotten them to incorporate music therapy with dance. And then I've also gotten folks that do like different types of drumming and how that can be somatics. And so it's just so many good, yummy things you can do. So yes. So
contact Vahisha if this is something that you feel would really benefit your students or yourself, or your team. I know entire faculties that could use this stuff. Contact Vahisha, and she'll be happy to guide you in doing the work. And just can't recommend it enough. Really.
I put my Calendly in the chat so Melissa can share there. And I mean, she has everything else of my life that she can share.
So thank you so much again, Vahisha, for joining us. Thank you, Bree. I'm so glad that this was just an education for you as well. We all need this. This industry is so stressful, and we need every tool and technique that we possibly can grasp upon to navigate this. So thank you so much. A full recording of this episode is available at Apollo Performance on Facebook, as well as on Instagram through the link in my bio at TPDC_on_IG. Honored to do this work with you, Bree. Thank you again for another week. We are here every single Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And next week we are March 12th. We are here talking with Dr. Nashira Burkholder Cooley about how we can empower kids of all ages to make healthy food choices. When we say empower them, we mean empower them to make choices for themselves, because we as teachers and we as parents are not always there. The first thing they do is reach for that Snickers or reach for that soda. What are they going to do? Exactly. So this is how to empower students with that tool to make healthy choices. Until then, please continue on your journey beyond the steps, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Vahisha.
Thank you.